Friends, this is a clock prophecy update for April 22, 2020. We have a lot to talk about. However, the website will provide even more information on these topics. So please visit themeasureofdays.com. Just remember to put dashes between all the words. Note that Google completely censors my YouTube channel now, which is why I no longer get 25 to 50,000 views per video as I did before President Trump was elected. With so much censorship, I need your help circulating this information on social media and even here on YouTube. You can do this by uploading my content to your own channel, and I welcome this as long as you provide a link back to my website. Most of the YouTube channels that claim to be sharing Bible prophecy from Scripture, all but a handful, are owned and operated by agents of disinformation in league with George Soros, the Chinese Communist Party, groups possibly associated with the CIA, the Vatican, atheist groups, the World Council of Churches, and anti-Israel propaganda teams. The censorship of my channel began when I tried to expose various Antichrist platforms such as Real TV, Brother Nathaniel, Brother James Key, so-called brother, The Rapture Puzzle, Steve Fletcher, Parable of the Vineyard, and probably a few others. None of these channels are operated by followers of Jesus Christ. Their goal is to damage the faith of any Christian watching them. At one point, they would steal content from my channel, including my photograph, an image of me, material from my book, or just commentary from the website, and then rebroadcast altered portions after scrubbing reference to me, to my book, or the website, or the clock prophecy. These tactics are designed to destroy legitimate online Christian ministry and bring an end to God's true voice in public media. Sadly, a China-based propaganda program is now underway in the U.S. and has the support of Marxists in our national media. They want to move America into full-blown socialism and install a one-world government before 2030. God is going to permit them to partially succeed, but only long enough for the wheat and tares to be separated during what Jesus described as a four-part harvest beginning at the third hour, which corresponds to the third trumpet, Matthew 20, verse 3. And we know this because the mathematics of the clock prophecy measure Scripture and link these events also. And this would occur shortly after the head wound event and just before the rise of the Antichrist. President Trump is standing against the globalist agenda, and that is why things that have been hidden in the darkness are coming to light for everyone to see. The coronavirus is real, but it is not as deadly as the media or the communist-controlled WHO would have us believe. The rate of death from COVID-19 is about the same as seasonal flu. I've been saying this for quite a few weeks, and now the latest data is confirming that. While I do not believe this is one of the plagues described in the book of Revelation, it is a foreshadowing of things to come. After the second and third trumpets have blown and two objects strike the earth, destroying Rome and most of Europe, the bowl judgments of God will begin. News that Prince Charles contracted the coronavirus might still be significant. While he is the heir apparent to the throne in the UK, his son is the individual the clock has identified as the future Antichrist. If Prince Charles is taken out of royal succession by this or any other event in the weeks to come, a path to the throne opens up for William. All of this appears to be a harbinger for critical mass during the spring or summer, especially with the U.S. presidential election in the fall. The globalists are determined to see President Trump out of office this year, and that is why I believe critical mass could occur before midsummer. Revelation chapter 12 may hold an additional key to our place on the timeline, which I hope to make clear in this update. Let's read this passage as it relates to the woman, who is Israel, the birth of the man-child, and the woman's journey into the wilderness on wings of an eagle. Here is what John wrote. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. This is a reference to 1,260 days. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Revelation chapter 12, verses 13 through 16. In my August 14, 2019 update, we vectored the birth of the man-child to April 17, 2014, where verse 2 of this passage fell on the clock. I went on to outline how a period of 13 years will be required for the man-child to reach adulthood and virginity in April of 2027. Remember that in an earlier passage of Revelation, I believe it's chapter 7, John refers to the man-child as having virginity, and that's why this age of 13 is of critical importance. I believe the August 2019 update was the most important message that I have published in over 10 years of ministry. So if you have not read that discussion, please do so at the measureofdays.com website using the 2019 message archives. In this passage, we see the woman is given 2 wings of a great eagle in order for her to find refuge from the face of the serpent. This happens shortly after she gives birth to the man-child in verse 2. Just 2 years later, in 2016, Donald Trump was elected president, and the Jewish state began to be sheltered from the assault of the first beast, who the clock had identified as Barack Obama. This identification also occurred in 2014. And you can read about those metrics and measurements in Scripture in earlier messages and in chapter 6 of the book. I believe the face of the serpent in this passage refers to Obama's efforts to undermine the Jewish state and orchestrate the defeat of Prime Minister Netanyahu shortly before the return of Christ. We'll talk later in another update about the recent news out of Israel, in which Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz will have a kind of a shared power situation for the next 3 years, so that they don't have to have an election during that time. The eagle in Revelation chapter 12, in my view, refers to the United States under the leadership of President Trump, who has greatly increased assistance to Israel, as well as recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish state, thus giving flight to Israel and shielding her from the face of the dragon. As you know, I view the 1,260 days following Israel's flight to safety to be the same 1,260 days, or 42 months, following the head wound event in chapter 13. But if we count 1,260 days from the election of President Trump, we arrive at a very different point in time as compared to a period of 1,260 days from the head wound event, which is yet to occur. It may be that God is using these time frames to help us mark where one layer of prophecy ends and another begins. It may be that 42 months following the woman's flight is just a buffer until the start of Jacob's trouble, so that the 42-month period after the head wound event would represent the actual duration of Great Tribulation. If we do indeed reach critical mass in 2020, the dual use of these numbers could explain how. Let's do the math. November 9, 2016, the date of the U.S. election, presidential election, plus 1,260 days equals April 22, 2020. Alternatively, we might use the date that President Trump was inaugurated, January 20, 2017, the date of the U.S. inauguration, plus 1,260 days equals July the 3rd, 2020. This gives us a window of time during which the meteor, the head wound event, as well as the rise of the Antichrist, what I refer to as the trifecta of Bible prophecy, may in fact occur over the next 10 weeks. If these events do not take place during that time frame, I believe critical mass is more likely to occur during the same window of time in 2027. It remains possible, however, that these biblical events may occur in the intervening years from 2021 to 2026. Earlier, I said the flood from the mouth of the dragon refers to the flood of disinformation from the Vatican, affiliates of George Soros, the World Council of Churches, and other groups whose propaganda campaigns are an attempt to divide Jerusalem and prevent the return of Christ. I have no doubt that this is the case. At the same time, this passage may pertain to the meteor when it impacts the ocean, sending a large amount of water over the Italian peninsula, further south into northern Africa, and east towards the state of Israel. A literal flood, probably not quite as large as the tsunami that hit Indonesia in 2004. I used meteor impact modeling software from the University of Liverpool in London to study the effects of a large meteor when it strikes the ocean, and was surprised to learn that a 5 to 7 mile wide meteor, the size of the object prophesied to strike off the coast of Italy, is unlikely to produce a water swell of more than 12 or 15 feet. Such an effect, however, only accounts for the spread of kinetic energy from the meteor across the surface of the water before an associated shock wave reaches the earth below to produce a seismic disruption on the ocean floor, producing one or more massive earthquakes. Such a powerful shock wave would generate enough seismic force to produce a wall of water up to 75 feet in height before it sweeps across the region, completely flooding nearby coastlines and perhaps threatening inland populations as well. John describes this earthquake as the largest such event in human history. Quoting Revelation chapter 16, verse 18, "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great." Now let's see what the prophet Isaiah wrote regarding the waters of a flood that will appear to threaten Israel until they recede, sparing Jerusalem. Quoting Isaiah 43, verse 2, "When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee when thou walkest through the fire. Thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee." Keep in mind that a firewall is also associated with the meteor shock wave when a 1,600 mile wide blast zone sends a ring of fire across most of Europe, as shown in large area maps in earlier updates. This level of devastation is beyond comparison in human history, and it will be God's answer to Satan's assault on Israel and the church. It has come to my attention that the viral pandemic spreading across the globe is generating unrest in Europe and placing tremendous pressure on the EU. For that reason, the 27-state European Union may soon break apart. This is what the globalists have feared most, and it pretends a smaller 10-state union as described in the book of Revelation once the meteor strikes and the Antichrist comes to power. We are getting close. This period of watch from April 22 through July 3, or July 3rd, 2020, is based on time measurements found in chapters 2 and 3 of my book, and could mark the arrival of critical mass in 2020. If it happens, it will almost certainly be during this window of time. I have created a table with individual country rankings to show how the U.S. compares to other nations fighting the coronavirus. The link for this information is on the main page of the website, and the chart is updated weekly. On a per capita basis, we can see that the U.S. is less severely impacted by COVID-19 than many other countries, including Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Sweden. Just 24 hours after I did some CTR, which means correct the record, on a couple of Fox News articles discussing the rate of illness in the United States, I was amazed to hear the president quote exact per capita and country ranking data from my chart, which has been published here since, or on the website since early April. While I can't say that my chart for sure was made available to the president, I can tell you with total certainty that no media or medical sources in the world that I have found are currently providing a per capita chart rating like the one you find here on the Measure of Days website. The truth is that COVID-19 is no more lethal than a bad seasonal flu, which occurred 2 years ago and killed 80,000 people in the United States, plus another 600,000 or so worldwide. As of now, the virus-related deaths are far below the influenza totals in the 2017 to 2018 flu season, and based on the latest data, we won't surpass those numbers even if we end the shutdown today. Feel free to share this information with others that you feel would appreciate it, and see the website for more discussion of these end-time events. God bless as you continue to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Behold, I come quickly. This is Peter John Brandal.